The donor and recipient luncheon was supposed to be a heartwarming capstone. 3 months ago, I'd anonymously donated a kidney through a paid donor program to fund my mom's life-saving heart surgery. Now, clutching a stale pastry in the hospital atrium, I scanned the room for the stranger whose life I'd saved. Then, the doors swung open. In walked Liam, my mother's boyfriend of 6 months, looking healthier and more vibrant than ever, his arm around her waist. He was beaming, waving to the transplant coordinator. My mom squeezed my hand, whispering, "Isn't this lovely? Liam's been volunteering here." That's when the coordinator took the microphone. "Please welcome our remarkable recipient, Mr. Liam Shaw, and the anonymous donor who made his new life possible. Donor number K227. My number." The room's applause turned to a dull roar in my ears as Liam's eyes met mine across the crowd. His charming smile didn't falter, it just deepened, curving into a secret, horrific acknowledgement. "My name is Maya Solis. I'm 26 and I've been the adult in my family since I was 16, when my dad left and my mom's health began its slow decline. I work 2 jobs. Days as a meticulous paralegal at a small firm, nights as a freelance graphic designer. My life is a color-coded spreadsheet of medical bills, insurance appeals, and overtime hours. I am fiercely protective, chronically tired, and an expert at finding solutions where there seem to be none." Liam entered our lives like a soothing balm. He met my mom at her book club. Charming, attentive, financially stable from remote consulting work, he drove her to appointments, made her laugh, and became the respite I desperately needed. When her doctor said she needed a new cardiac valve, a procedure our insurance stubbornly deemed elective, it was Liam who gently mentioned, "You know, there are ethical donor programs for the right kind of person." He made it sound like a noble investment, and I was the only asset we had. The program was discreet and legal, pairing healthy donors with recipients in dire need for a significant financial compensation. My motivations were a tangled knot of love and desperation. The money would clear the medical debt and pay for the surgery in full. The physical cost was mine alone to bear. I told my mom I'd landed a massive freelance project that required a work retreat for a few weeks, total radio silence. Liam, supportive as ever, offered to stay with her, to handle everything. "You've carried this family long enough, Maya," he'd said, his hand on my shoulder. "Let someone else help." The surgery and recovery were a blur of pain and isolation. I returned home thinner, paler, with a fresh scar my mom attributed to appendicitis I'd supposedly had on my retreat. Liam was there, cooking healthy meals, looking a little tired himself, but insisting his spiritual detox had been rigorous. My mom's surgery was scheduled, paid for with the donor funds I'd deposited in a new account. Life, against all odds, seemed to be working. Then the hospital's invitation arrived, a chance to close the circle of gratitude, it read. My mom, ever sentimental, begged us to go. "It'll be beautiful," she said. Liam agreed immediately, a little too eagerly. "It's important to honor these miracles," he'd remarked, his eyes avoiding mine. In the atrium, under the fluorescent lights, the truth detonated. The applause washed over me as I stood frozen. Liam, my mother's boyfriend, was the man who had my kidney. The math was vile and instantaneous. He hadn't just benefited from my sacrifice, he had orchestrated it. He'd targeted a vulnerable woman with a daughter who would do anything for her. He'd researched donor programs, planted the idea, and volunteered to help so he could monitor me. His spiritual detox was his own recovery, funded by my body, while he played the devoted partner in my home. My mom was tugging my arm, her face confused. "Maya, what's wrong? That's your donor number." Liam was walking toward us, a public smile plastered on his face. He extended his hand to me for the crowd. "Thank you," he said, loud enough for others to hear. "You have no idea what this gift means." I took his hand. It was warm with stolen vitality. I leaned in, my voice a venomous whisper only he could hear. "You lived in my house, you ate my food, and you took my kidney." His smile tightened, but he didn't let go. "And your mother is alive because of it," he whispered back, his eyes cold. "Now smile for the cameras, Maya. You're a hero." The rest of the luncheon was a special kind of torture. He gave a speech about second chances and anonymous angels. I watched my mother watch him with teary-eyed pride. The coordinator asked if I, the donor, wanted to say anything. I looked at Liam, then at my mom. No, I said, my voice hollow. The transaction is complete. The car ride home was silent. My mom, overwhelmed with emotion, held Liam's hand. To think, she mused, my two favorite people in the world are connected by such a miracle. Once home, I waited until she went to rest. I found Liam in the kitchen, washing dishes as if he owned the place. Get out, I said, my voice trembling with rage. Or what? You'll tell her? You think she'll believe you, that your devoted daughter sold an organ, lied about a retreat, and now accuses her loving boyfriend of being the recipient? It sounds unhinged, Maya. You'll break her heart and destroy her health. The stress could kill her. She was right. I had no proof that connected him to the donor program. It was my word against the man who'd been her rock. What do you want? I asked, defeated. He finally turned, drying his hands. Nothing more. I got what I needed, a new lease on life. You got what you wanted, your mother healthy and debt-free. We're square. I'll stay until after her surgery next week to see it through. Then I'll have a sudden job opportunity out of state. A clean break. She'll remember me fondly. You'll move on. It was the perfect crime. He would walk away, healed and unpunished. I was left with a phantom ache and a secret that would poison my relationship with my mother forever. I didn't sleep that night. I replayed every interaction, every suggestion Liam had made. The paralegal in me started building a case. I couldn't go to my mom, not yet, but I could gather evidence. I went back to the donor program citing post-donation psychological distress. I requested all communication logs for my recipient's case under Privacy Act provisions. It took weeks, but they arrived. There was no name, but there were details. Initial inquiry dates, match confirmation timelines. I cross-referenced them with my mom's calendar, where she'd noted meeting Liam for the first time, 2 weeks after his initial inquiry to the donor program. He had been looking for a donor before he ever met her. She wasn't the target. I was. I hired a discreet PI with the last of the donor money. He found traces of a different life, old debts, a dismissed fraud charge, aliases. Liam Shaw was a ghost, but a sloppy one. My mom's surgery was a success. The day she came home, radiant and relieved, Liam packed his bags. My contract in Dubai came through, he said, kissing her forehead. I'll call you every day. I walked him to his car. I know you targeted me, I said, my voice steady now. You have 2 choices. You disappear forever and we never speak of this, or I take this file to the authorities and the media. A story about a predator who cons sick women to harvest their children's organs writes itself. For the first time, I saw fear in his eyes. The charming facade vanished. He got in his car without a word and drove away. I never told my mom the full truth. I told her Liam had a history of conning vulnerable people, that I'd discovered it, and that I'd made him leave. She was hurt, then angry, then finally grateful. The scar on my side, she now knows, is for saving her life, though she believes it was through a financial windfall, not a physical sacrifice. I look at my reflection sometimes, touching the scar. A part of me is literally gone, used to mend a man's broken body, but it also bought my mother's future. The transaction was foul, but the outcome is real. I guard the secret like I guard my mom's health, vigilantly, silently. And in the quiet, I've found a grim strength. I didn't just donate a kidney. I excised a predator from our lives, and I paid the price in flesh. Some debts are written in blood and suture, and mine, at least, is finally paid in full. My role as the family anchor began at 16, when my dad left with a note that read more like a resignation letter from a job he hated. Can't do this anymore. Mom's tired spells were diagnosed as cardiomyopathy, a weakening heart. Overnight, my world narrowed to school, the pharmacy, and deciphering medical bills that looked like abstract threats. I learned to cook low-sodium meals before I learned to drive. The weight wasn't just emotional, it was a constant pressing calculus of survival. Love became a verb spelled A-C-T-I-O-N. So when Liam appeared, offering to share the load, I didn't just welcome him, I felt a guilty, overwhelming surge of relief. For the first time in a decade, I could breathe. It was a vulnerability he must have smelled like blood in the water. Liam's courtship of my mother was a masterclass in targeted affection. He remembered her favorite obscure poet, brought her the specific tea she'd once mentioned, and sat with her through afternoon fatigue, listening with a patience that felt saintly. To me, he was the cool, understanding, almost stepdad. "You've got to have a life too, Maya," he'd say, slipping me $50 for a movie with friends I never had time to see. "I've got this." The first mention of the donor program was so casual. We were all watching a medical drama where a character received a transplant. Amazing what they can do, Liam mused. And you know, there are even altruistic programs now, financially compensated, of course. For the right, healthy young person, it could be a life changer for everyone involved. He'd looked at me then, not at my mom. Just a thought, in case things ever get tight. When the insurance denial for the new valve came, it was Liam who had the pamphlet, folded as if he'd been carrying it for a while. This could be the answer, he said, his hand on my shoulder. A single act of incredible generosity that solves everything. He made it sound like my idea. He made it sound heroic. The guilt I felt for considering it was overshadowed only by the terror of losing my mom. He had built the stage, handed me the script, and I walked onto it believing I was the director. The donor process was dehumanizing in its clinical efficiency. I was poked, scanned, and psych-evaluated. They asked if I was under any coercion. I thought of my mother's blue lips after a simple walk to the mailbox and said no. The money, a staggering sum that felt both blood-soaked and miraculous, was placed in escrow. The night before the surgery, in a sterile hotel room paid for by the program, I finally broke down. I cried for the piece of myself I was giving away, for the lie I was living, and for the profound loneliness of having no one to tell. I called Liam, my voice shaking. Is this normal, to be this scared? His voice was soothing, a practiced balm. It's the bravest thing anyone could do, Maya. You're saving your mom. This is just the mechanism. Think of the outcome. He was right. I clung to the outcome. The surgery itself was a blank space. Waking up was a fire in my side, a deep, vital hollowing. Recovery was a private hell of pain and nausea in a clinical apartment, my only human interaction with a visiting nurse. I'd stare at my phone, at pictures of my mom and Liam smiling together at a park, sent with captions like, "Wishing you were here on your retreat." The cognitive dissonance was a physical ache worse than the incision. After the luncheon, a cold, focused fury replaced my shock. I couldn't confront him without ammunition. The paralegal in me took over. At work, I began discreetly researching medical fraud and donor program regulations. My official request to the donor program for post-operative psychological support documentation was a legal fishing expedition. When the filtered records came, the timeline was the smoking gun. Recipient inquiry, March 14th. First match potential flagged, April 2nd. My mother's diary, filled with Liam's courtship milestones, noted their fateful meet-cute at the bookstore on April 18th. He hadn't stumbled into our lives. He researched, applied, been approved, and then went shopping for the donor's family. I used the last of the donor money for a private investigator. Find who he was before Liam Shaw, I instructed. The report was a portrait of a ghost, a small-time grifter named Leo Shaw with debts to unsavory people, a dismissed elder financial abuse charge for lack of evidence, a pattern of moving into towns with major hospitals. My kidney wasn't his first scam, it was his most audacious. The PI even found a pharmacy receipt during my retreat, filled in Liam's name, for anti-rejection drugs, the anti-rejection drugs a recipient must take for life. A year later, our lives are deceptively peaceful. My mom is healthier than she's been in years, gardening, taking a watercolor class. The scar on my side has faded to a silver line, a topographical map of betrayal and love. We never speak of Liam. She believes my story that he was a fraud who targeted her for money and fled when I uncovered it. It's a cleaner, kinder truth. But the secret has changed me. I am more guarded, less quick to trust. I see calculations where I once saw kindness. The world feels slightly more transactional, yet there's a hardened strength in my core forged in that hospital atrium. I used the rest of the evidence not to pursue Liam, but to anonymously tip off the donor network, adding his aliases and methods to their vigilance list. He's their problem now. Sometimes, on my mom's good days, when she laughs freely, I press my hand to my side. The phantom ache flares, a morbid receipt. I didn't just give up a kidney, I lost a certain innocence, a belief in pure altruism. But in its place, I gained a ruthless understanding of how far I'll go for love, and the quiet, unshakable power that comes from being the one who holds the truth, who survived the deal, and who built a better life on the other side of it. The balance sheet of my life is forever altered, but the most important asset, my mother, alive and thriving, is finally in the black.